For centuries, the Roman Empire operated on a simple, brutal logic: keep moving forward. Across the Mediterranean and deep into Europe, their legions marched in perfect sync, absorbing new land and wealth with every step. To the Romans, survival was a zero-sum game. The prevailing strategy was to conquer your neighbors before they had the chance to conquer you. Even when conquered populations violently pushed back, like the fierce British uprising led by Queen Boudica, the Roman war machine reliably crushed the resistance and resumed its march. By the time they pushed deep into the British Isles, constant conquest was the engine of the entire Roman economy. The empire required a steady diet of new territory and new subjects to sustain itself. But as those legions pushed into northern Britain, the familiar Mediterranean climates gave way to freezing, rain-swept moors and dense, wild forests. For 40 years, the Romans bled in this wilderness. They faced constant, terrifying hit-and-run raids from northern tribes who refused to surrender, attacking Roman camps and melting back into the fog. The Roman high command eventually hit a breaking point. Pushing further north would cost far more blood and coin than the land was worth. To survive, they had to figure out how to lock down the edge of the known world. Their first instinct was to throw manpower at the problem. They built heavy military forts, planting large troop garrisons right in the middle of the hostile zone. To chase down the fast-moving tribal raiding parties, Rome shipped in its most elite cavalry units, pulling highly trained rapid response horsemen from across the globe to patrol the perimeter. But the native tribes kept slipping through the gaps. Frustrated, Roman engineers threw together a quick-fix boundary: miles of stacked turf walls backed by steep V-shaped ditches. The turf degraded, and the raids continued. Rome realized that temporary military camps and mounds of dirt couldn't hold the line. They needed a permanent physical barrier. In the year 122, Emperor Hadrian arrived with a radical directive. He ordered the military to halt its expansion entirely and commanded the construction of a continuous stone wall. Executing that vision required a staggering labor force. 15,000 soldiers worked in the freezing mud for 6 straight years, hoisting millions of heavy-cut stones into place. The result was a barrier that sliced the island in half. It stretched for 73 miles, standing up to 15 feet high and 10 feet thick. The largest structure the empire ever produced served a singular defensive purpose. It drew a hard, permanent line through the soil to end the age of expansion. This stone barrier operated as an active military complex. The wall was studded with constant watchtowers and 80 small forts known as Milecastles, spaced on regular intervals. If you look at the architectural layout of these Milecastles, you find massive, fortified gates that open directly outward into barbarian territory. Those gates show us exactly how the Romans used the structure. It was a highly controlled filter. It allowed Roman troops to launch targeted raids, regulate trade, and collect taxes on anyone crossing the border. Hadrian's wall functioned like a breathing membrane. Rome could project its military power outward into the north, while remaining completely insulated from surprise attacks. Over the next 3 centuries, a historical paradox unfolded. By engineering an impenetrable, militarized dead zone, Rome accidentally created a vibrant, multicultural hub. As the decades passed, the soldiers stationed at the wall started families. Merchants set up shop to sell them supplies, and conquered Britons moved in to live alongside their occupiers. The archaeological record reveals a deeply blended society. Traditional British roundhouse architecture sits right next to Roman barracks, alongside heavy stone querns used by civilians to grind daily grain inside an active war zone. Excavators have pulled deeply personal items from the dirt here: children's leather shoes and stones carved with symbols to ward off the evil eye. These artifacts prove that the frontier eventually stopped being a temporary battlefield. Wherever Roman soldiers stopped and pitched a tent, civilian life, commerce, and culture inevitably took root. Eventually, this wild frontier became so stable that later emperors built grand public infrastructure hundreds of miles from the capital. Massive luxury bathhouses and towering granaries were erected, some featuring lightweight roofing techniques imported all the way from North African specialists. A muddy garrison had matured into a permanent, highly developed Roman city. To support all of this, Roman engineers laid down wide, durable roads that ran right up to the wall's gates, turning the military border into an economic trade route that lasted for centuries. Hadrian's Wall marks the moment Rome prioritized the security of a fixed border over the uncertainty of endless growth. It remains the ultimate symbol of a power that finally chose to root itself in place, protecting the civilization it had already built.